At my birthday dinner, my brother's kid hurled my purse into the pool and screamed, "Dad says you don't deserve nice things." Stick with me because what happened that night opened my eyes in ways I never expected. And if my story speaks to you, I'd love for you to show some love by liking, subscribing, and sharing it with people who need to hear it. My name is Michaela Johnson. I'm 32 years old, and I've worked for everything I have. Growing up wasn't easy. I had to push through jobs that barely paid the bills, late nights studying while running on coffee, and years of people telling me I'd never make it. But I made it. I became a nurse, saved up, bought myself a home, and finally started to feel like I could breathe. This birthday was supposed to be a fresh chapter, a celebration of how far I had come. I invited close friends and family for a small dinner at my new place. The house was glowing with warm lights, music playing low in the background, and laughter filling the rooms. It felt good to see the people I cared about gathered under one roof. But then my brother Darius walked in. He's 35, and for as long as I can remember, he's carried a chip on his shoulder when it came to me. Where I had to grind for every step forward, he drifted through life, always looking for the easy way out. And lately, he'd been raising his son Malik with the same sharp attitude. Malik is only 10, but you can already see how much Darius's bitterness has rubbed off on him. From the moment they arrived, Malik was restless and disrespectful. He rolled his eyes at simple instructions, made rude comments under his breath, and kept pushing boundaries. I tried to brush it off. It was my birthday after all. But then, just when my boyfriend Elias handed me a beautiful new purse as a gift, everything shifted. Malik, with no hesitation, grabbed the purse and flung it straight into the pool. Water splashed up, people gasped, and before I could even process, he shouted, "Dad says you don't deserve nice things." The whole backyard went silent. My face burned with embarrassment as everyone looked at me, waiting for Darius to correct his son. But instead of scolding Malik, Darius laughed. He laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. "Kids, right?" he said, shrugging it off as if Malik had just made a silly mistake. In that moment, the sting of humiliation cut deeper than I wanted to admit. I had worked so hard to build this life, and here I was being torn down in front of my closest people by the two who were supposed to be my family. That was the night I realized betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. It can come from the people sitting right across the dinner table. When I think back, I realize the cracks in my family didn't start at my birthday dinner. They had been there all along, growing wider with each passing year. Darius and I were never the type of siblings who lifted each other up. From the time we were little, it always felt like I had to fight twice as hard just to be seen, while he was handed the easy road. Our mother, Lorraine, adored Darius. To her, he could do no wrong. If he got in trouble at school, she would excuse it. Boys will be boys. If I did well on a test, she would nod politely and then turn all her attention back to him. Even as kids, that favoritism cut deep. I would come home with straight A's, glowing with pride, and instead of celebrating me, she'd ask, "Why don't you help your brother with his work? He needs more support." It was as if my achievements meant nothing, as if my worth was tied only to how useful I could be for him. Darius noticed this too, and he leaned into it. He loved to poke at me, to mock me for being the tryhard. When I decided I wanted to become a nurse, he laughed in my face. "Why spend all that time in school just to wipe old people's butts?" he sneered. It hurt, but I bit my tongue. I had to. Deep down, I knew proving him wrong would be my best answer. So I pushed myself harder. I worked 2 jobs, waiting tables at night and doing clerical work in the mornings, while still dragging myself to classes. I remember walking to campus in the freezing cold, praying that all those sacrifices would mean something one day. And when I finally graduated nursing school, it felt like I had climbed a mountain on my own. Darius wasn't there to cheer for me. Instead, he rolled his eyes and muttered, "Guess you think you're better than everyone now." That became the story of our adult lives. I built step by step, and he drifted. While I saved every dollar I could, he leaned on friends, girlfriends, even our mother, always looking for someone to carry him. And whenever I tried to help him, whether with advice, money, or opportunities, he twisted it into an insult. "Don't act like you're saving me," he'd spit, as if my success was some personal attack on him. The worst part was watching his son, Malik, soak up that same bitterness. Malik is just 10, but already he repeats his father's words like they're gospel. He mocks people who try hard, laughs at kindness, and acts as though the world owes him something. When I saw him throw my purse in the pool, it wasn't just a bratty moment. It was Darius's voice echoing through him. It was proof that my brother wasn't just destroying himself. He was teaching his child to hate me too. That realization broke something in me. Family is supposed to be a place of safety, but with Darius, it had always been a battlefield. And now, he was raising his son to continue the war. The dinner had been going smoothly for a while, at least on the surface. Laughter carried across the table, glasses clinked, and the smell of roasted chicken and garlic butter filled the air. For a moment, I almost forgot about the tension between me and Darius. Almost. Then Elias, my boyfriend, stood up with a grin that made my heart swell. He walked over with a carefully wrapped box and placed it in front of me. "Happy birthday, Michaela," he said softly, kissing the side of my head. I unwrapped it slowly, the paper falling away to reveal a glossy designer bag I had been eyeing for months. My chest tightened, not because of the price tag, but because Elias knew me well enough to get something so personal. It wasn't just a purse, it was thoughtfulness, care, and love wrapped into one. My friends clapped, a few of my cousins gasped, and I felt a rush of happiness that someone cared enough to do this for me. But then came the voice I dreaded. Darius leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Man, Elias, you really wasted your money on her. She doesn't need fancy things. Give her a mop and bucket instead. She'd probably use that more." The table fell awkwardly quiet. I laughed nervously, trying to brush it off, but inside I felt my face heating up. That familiar sting of humiliation rose in me, the same one I'd felt 1,000 times growing up under his shadow. Elias, though, wasn't as practiced in swallowing it. His jaw tightened, his hand balled into a fist on the table. "Respectfully, Darius," Elias said, his tone firm. "What I do for Michaela is between me and her." Darius snorted and raised his hands. "Hey, I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. No need to get sensitive." His eyes darted toward Malik, who had been quiet until then. Darius bent down and whispered something into his ear. Seconds later, Malik jumped from his chair, snatched the purse from the table, and bolted toward the pool. Before I could even move, he hurled it straight into the water. A splash echoed, droplets hitting the pavement, and the laughter died completely. "Dad says you don't deserve nice things," Malik shouted, his small face twisted into defiance. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I froze, my chest sinking as though someone had pressed a stone against it. Elias shot up, his voice sharp. "Are you serious right now?" He glared at Darius, who sat there grinning like it was all a joke. "Relax," Darius said with a shrug. "Kids repeat what they hear. Don't take it so seriously. No apology. No discipline. Just that smug smile that told me he enjoyed every second of my humiliation." I wanted to scream, to tell him how cruel and petty he was, but I swallowed it down. Not tonight. Not in front of everyone. I forced a smile, even as my hands trembled, and tried to laugh it off. But inside, I was burning. When the last guest finally left, I stood in the quiet of my house, staring at the damp purse that Elias had pulled out of the pool. My heart was still pounding from the scene, and I couldn't shake the image of Darius sitting there, smirking like he had won something. I knew if I let the night end like that, I'd carry the weight of it forever. So I called him outside before he could drive off. We stood in the driveway, the cool night air brushing against us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I wanted him to apologize, to at least admit Malik had gone too far. Instead, Darius crossed his arms and looked at me like I was wasting his time. "Why would you let him do that?" I finally asked, my voice shaking. "Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? On my birthday, in front of everyone." He chuckled bitterly. "Humiliating? Please, Michaela. You walk around acting like you're better than everyone. You don't deserve all this. That purse? That house? That man? None of it should be yours. You just got lucky." His words cut like glass. My throat tightened, and for a second, I couldn't even respond. All those years of biting my tongue, all those moments of swallowing my pride, came rushing back in waves. "Lucky," I whispered. "You think working 2 jobs while going to school was luck? You think saving every dime I could, fighting through exhaustion, was luck?" I bled for this life, Darius. Nobody handed it to me. But he wasn't listening. His eyes were filled with something darker than jealousy. It was entitlement. He truly believed I had taken something that should have been his. "You've always thought you were smarter, harder working," he sneered. "But deep down, you know you don't deserve any of it. And you know it." Before I could answer, Elias walked outside, his face tight with anger. "Enough," he said firmly. "Michaela, you don't owe him an explanation. He doesn't respect you, and he never will." Cut him off before he drags you down with him." Darius scoffed and walked toward his car. Typical. Let your boyfriend fight your battles. Shows just how weak you are. I wanted to scream, to tell him he was wrong, but all I did was stand there, staring at his back as he drove away. Elias slipped his arm around me, pulling me close. "He's toxic, Michaela. You have to let him go," he murmured. But I couldn't answer. The guilt was heavy in my chest, the same guilt I had carried since childhood. He was my brother, my blood. Cutting him off felt impossible, even though deep down, I knew Elias was right. That night, lying awake in bed, I realized something painful. Darius didn't just resent my success. He resented my happiness, my peace, and the fact that I had built a life he believed belonged to him. And that was far more dangerous than jealousy alone. The days after the dinner were heavy. I tried to move on, tried to let it go, but the whispers started almost immediately. Cousins, aunts, even old family friends. Everyone seemed to have an opinion about what happened. And somehow, the story twisted until I was the villain. It started with my mother, Lorraine. She called me 2 days later, her voice calm but sharp, the way it always was when she was about to defend Darius. "Michaela," she sighed, "you know your brother is just struggling. He doesn't mean the things he says. You should be more understanding." "Understanding?" I asked, gripping the phone tighter. "He let his son humiliate me in front of everyone. He laughed at me, Mom. He didn't even try to stop it. He's going through a hard time," she replied firmly. "You have a good job, a good man, a home. Darius doesn't have any of that. Don't hold it against him. Maybe if you helped him more, he wouldn't act out." Her words sank like lead in my chest. No matter how many times he tore me down, she always found a way to excuse him. It was like she couldn't see me at all, only him. And then came the extended family. At the next gathering, I could feel the eyes on me, the murmurs just loud enough for me to catch pieces. "Michaela's got money now, but she's too selfish to share. She could change her brother's life if she really wanted to." All that success made her cold. I wanted to scream. Did no one remember the years I worked 2 jobs while Darius stayed out late doing nothing? Did no one care that I'd pulled myself out of the mud without anyone's help? Instead of respect, all I got was judgment, for not handing over the things I had fought so hard for. Even Elias noticed. He squeezed my hand under the table one night when a cousin leaned in and said, "You know, family comes first. Maybe Darius wouldn't be so bitter if you just helped him with bills." I bit my tongue until it bled, forcing a smile, because I knew if I snapped, it would only make me look worse. That night, when everyone had gone, I sat on the edge of my bed and let the anger wash over me. For so long, I'd carried guilt like a second skin. Guilt for having more, guilt for not being able to fix Darius, guilt for being the child my mother didn't need to worry about. But now I saw it clearly. That guilt was the very thing they used to keep me in place. I realized then that I had to protect myself. Not just from Darius, but from the entire cycle of blame and manipulation. I couldn't change how they saw me, but I could make sure they never got the chance to tear down what I'd built. Quietly, I started planning. Not revenge, not yet, but defense. Because if I didn't draw the line, Darius would never stop crossing it. It happened on a quiet Saturday afternoon. I was folding laundry when I heard a knock at the door. To my surprise, it was Malik, standing there with his backpack slung over one shoulder. He looked innocent enough, smiling like he was just dropping by. "Dad said I could come over," he mumbled. "He told me to borrow some things." The way he said it made my stomach twist. Borrow what? I let him inside anyway, not wanting to punish a 10-year-old for his father's schemes. I offered him a snack, turned back to the laundry, and tried to convince myself I was overthinking. But a few minutes later, the silence in the house felt wrong. I went to check on him. I found Malik in my bedroom, my jewelry box open on the dresser. His little hands were shoving earrings into his pocket. "Malik!" My voice cracked louder than I intended. He froze, wide-eyed, like a child caught with candy he wasn't supposed to have. Slowly, he pulled his hand out of his pocket, and sure enough, my grandmother's necklace dangled from his fingers. "Where did you think you were taking that?" I asked, keeping my voice steady even though my chest was pounding. "Dad said you don't need it," Malik whispered. "He said it's not fair you get to have all this when he doesn't." The words stung more than I could handle. I took the jewelry from him and told him to sit down. A part of me wanted to cry for him, for how his father was filling his head with poison. But another part of me was furious that Darius was using his own child to rob me. I called Darius immediately, demanding he come pick up his son. He showed up within the hour, stomping up to my door with that same entitled scowl. The moment I told him what Malik had done, he exploded. "You're lying," he shouted. "You've hated me since we were kids, and now you're trying to turn my son against me. You think you're so perfect, don't you? Parading around with your house, your job, your man. You want Malik to believe I'm nothing, just like you believe it." I couldn't believe the audacity. He didn't even deny it. He twisted it, like he always did, until I was somehow the problem. Malik sat quietly on the couch, staring at his shoes, too scared to move. Elias came into the room then, his voice calm but edged with steel. "This isn't just jealousy, Michaela," he said, keeping his eyes on Darius. "He wants to ruin you. He won't stop until he does." The truth of those words sank deep into me. I looked at my brother, his face twisted with bitterness, and I knew Elias was right. If I kept giving Darius the benefit of the doubt, if I kept clinging to guilt and family ties, he would drag me down with him. That was the moment something shifted inside me. I decided then and there, I would not let Darius control my life anymore. The betrayal didn't come all at once. It started as whispers, little comments I overheard when family members thought I was out of earshot. "You know, that house isn't really hers. Elias paid for it." Or, "She's just good at trapping men. That's how she gets what she wants." At first, I brushed it off, assuming it was just jealousy from relatives who couldn't stand seeing me do well. But the more I heard it, the clearer it became. The words weren't random. They were planted. And I knew exactly who was planting them. One afternoon, a neighbor stopped me while I was getting the mail. She smiled politely, but her words stung. "Your man must really love you, buying you such a beautiful home. You're lucky." I froze, the envelopes shaking in my hand. "I bought this house myself," I said firmly, but she only tilted her head like she didn't believe me. That's when I realized Darius's lies weren't just spreading inside the family. They were spilling into the community too. The breaking point came at a cousin's baby shower. Malik, standing near a group of relatives, repeated the lie word for word. "My dad said Annie Michaela tricks men to buy her stuff. Uncle Elias even bought her house." The laughter that followed was like daggers in my chest. Nobody corrected him. Some smirked, others whispered, but no one defended me. Elias, standing beside me, stiffened with rage. We left early, the ride home thick with silence until Elias finally spoke. "I can't keep doing this, Michaela. Your brother is poisoning everyone against you, against us. He doesn't just resent you, he's trying to destroy your reputation. And the worst part? People are starting to believe him." His voice cracked with frustration, and I could see the pain in his eyes. "I know," I whispered, staring out the window. My heart felt heavy, but not just from what Darius had said. What cut deeper was knowing he was dragging Malik into his schemes, teaching his own son to humiliate me in public. It wasn't just cruel. It was deliberate. Elias gripped the steering wheel tighter. "We need to cut ties. Completely. No visits, no dinners, no favors. Nothing. He's toxic, Michaela. He'll never stop." Tears burned my eyes, but I nodded. "You're right." Saying it out loud was like breaking chains I'd carried my whole life. Still, inside, a part of me ached. He was my brother, my blood. And yet, he hated me enough to strip away everything I'd worked for, just to make himself feel better. But as much as it broke me, another part of me hardened. If Darius wanted a war, he'd get one, but not the way he expected. I wouldn't scream or fight in the open. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. No, my revenge would be quiet, patient, and calculated. That night, lying awake in the dark, I made a promise to myself. Darius thought he could twist the truth and turn people against me. But one day soon, he would choke on his own lies. Revenge, I realized, wasn't about shouting matches or throwing insults back the way they came. It was about patience, precision, and for the first time in my life, I was willing to play Darius at his own game. I started small. Every time Malik came over and repeated one of his father's poisonous lines, I wrote it down, where it happened, who was present, the exact words. When Darius stormed into my house to accuse me of turning his son against him, I recorded the date, the time, and even noted Elias as a witness. I didn't confront him anymore. I didn't give him fuel. I let him rage, while I quietly built a record. Then came the discovery that changed everything. I was helping Mom, Lorraine, sort through her bills one evening when I noticed her savings account looked thin. Much thinner than it should have been. I asked her about it, and she brushed it off, saying she must have spent more than she realized. But I knew my mother. She was careful, meticulous with her money. Something was wrong. Curiosity became investigation. With her permission, I went through the last few statements. Withdrawals she didn't remember. Transfers that didn't make sense. Each one leading back to Darius. He wasn't just lying about me. He was draining our own mother's savings to fund whatever selfish habits he had. My blood boiled, but instead of storming to his house, I tightened my resolve. I started collecting bank statements, printing copies, tucking them into a folder alongside my notes about his lies and Malik's coached outbursts. Every piece of evidence was a brick in the wall I was building against him. By the time I was done, the weight of the truth was undeniable. I waited for the right moment, and it came in the form of a family barbecue. Everyone was there, cousins, uncles, aunts, even neighbors who'd heard Darius's slander. He strutted around as usual, acting like the center of attention, while Malik trailed behind, parroting whatever poison he'd been fed. I stayed quiet, smiling, laughing at jokes, until the conversation turned to money and responsibilities. That was my opening. "I've been helping Mom with her accounts," I said casually, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "Funny thing is, she's been missing quite a bit of money. Thousands, actually." The chatter died down. Eyes turned toward me, then toward Lorraine. "What do you mean?" an aunt asked, concerned. Lorraine frowned, clearly uneasy. "I don't know. I thought I was just forgetting things." That's when I pulled out the folder. "You're not. Someone's been making withdrawals. Regularly. And it isn't you." I laid the papers down on the picnic table for everyone to see. The air grew heavy as relatives leaned in, scanning the numbers. Murmurs rose. Then Lorraine gasped, her hand trembling over the page. These aren't mine." She looked up, her eyes wide and wet. "Darius, what is this?" He froze, cornered by his own mother's voice, the crowd's accusing stares, and the hard evidence in black and white. For once, he had no lie ready, no smug grin to hide behind. And I sat back, my heart steady, watching him squirm. The trap had finally snapped shut. The silence after Lorraine's trembling question was unbearable. All eyes were locked on Darius, and for once, his trademark smirk was gone. His lips parted, but no words came out. He was cornered, stripped of the lies he'd used for years to twist everyone against me. "You think you can set me up?" he finally barked, his voice shaky, defensive. "These papers don't prove anything. Michaela's just trying to make me look bad because she—" Before he could finish, Malik, who had been squirming uncomfortably beside him, suddenly blurted out, "Dad told me to lie so people wouldn't like Auntie Michaela." The words shot through the crowd like lightning. Conversations froze mid-sentence. A few people audibly gasped. Darius whipped around to his son, his face pale, eyes wide with fury. "Shut up, Malik," he hissed, gripping his arm too tightly. But the damage was done. Lorraine staggered back a step, pressing a hand to her chest. You used your own son to spread lies about your sister?" Her voice cracked with disbelief. For years she had defended him, excused him, begged me to be more understanding. And now, the truth was laid bare by the child he had manipulated. One of our cousins shook his head. "All this time, Darius, we thought Michaela was the one being selfish. But it was you. Always you." The tide turned fast. The same relatives who had once whispered behind my back now muttered openly about him. Stealing from his own mother. Teaching that boy to hate his aunt. Shameful. Darius's eyes darted around, wild and desperate, looking for an ally. But no one came. Not even Lorraine. For the first time, she didn't reach to comfort him, didn't offer him an excuse. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "You've disgraced this family, Darius. And I let you. I defended you when I should have stopped you." I stood there, steady and calm, Elias's hand warm on my back. He leaned close and whispered, "You did it." They see him for what he is. His support, unwavering from the beginning, anchored me in that moment. Darius suddenly shoved back from the table, knocking over a chair. "You all think you're better than me?" he roared, his voice breaking with rage. "You'll regret this. Every last one of you." His gaze locked on me, eyes burning with hatred. "Especially you, Michaela. You've been against me since we were kids. I'll make you pay for this." He stormed off, dragging Malik with him, the boy crying and protesting. "But Dad, stop. Please." The crowd watched in stunned silence as they disappeared down the street, the echo of his fury hanging in the air. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the heavy weight of guilt pressing on my chest. I didn't feel the urge to run after him, to fix things, to be the responsible sibling. Instead, I felt something startling and liberating: freedom. I turned to Lorraine, who stood trembling but resolute. She met my eyes and whispered, "I'm so sorry, Michaela." And for the first time in my life, I believed she meant it. Weeks passed, and the storm finally settled. My house, once filled with whispers and hostility, felt lighter now, as if the air itself had been cleansed. When I decided to host another gathering, I kept it small this time, just a few close friends, Elias, and 2 cousins who had stood by me through everything. No loud chaos, no hidden agendas, no Darius. The night was warm, and we sat out on the patio under string lights Elias had hung earlier. Soft music played in the background, laughter flowed easily, and for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace in my own home. There was no need to glance over my shoulder, no waiting for some cruel remark to cut into the moment. Lorraine came too. She had been quieter since that barbecue, as if carrying the weight of realizing how blind she'd been all these years. When she hugged me at the door, her embrace lingered longer than usual. "Thank you for inviting me," she said softly. "I'm still learning how to be better." I smiled, choosing not to reopen old wounds. Some truths had already spoken for themselves. Malik wasn't there, and honestly, I didn't expect him to be. But a small part of me hoped that one day, away from his father's poison, he might grow into his own person. For now, though, his absence meant the evening remained calm, filled with warmth instead of tension. As I passed slices of cake around, Elias caught my eye and smiled knowingly. He had seen me at my breaking point, humiliated, betrayed, torn between loyalty and self-preservation. And he had stood firm when I wavered. His quiet strength reminded me that family isn't always about who shares your blood. Sometimes it's about who shows up, who respects you, who wants to see you rise instead of pulling you down. The conversation that night drifted from light jokes to deep reflections, and I realized something important. My revenge hadn't needed to be loud or dramatic. I hadn't screamed, thrown punches, or tried to destroy Darius with the same cruelty he'd used against me. All I did was reveal the truth, stay patient, and let him unravel under the weight of his own lies. That was sweeter than any public scene I could have caused. As the evening drew to a close, I leaned back in my chair, staring up at the stars. My voice was calm, but firm, when I spoke aloud what had been sitting in my heart since that birthday dinner. And to the little boy who threw my purse into the pool, someday, he'll realize his dad was wrong. I do deserve nice things. The table fell silent for a beat, then Elias squeezed my hand, and the others nodded. In that moment, I knew I had reclaimed not just my dignity, but also my peace. And this time, I wasn't going to let anyone take it away again. Do you believe Michaela made the right choice by stepping back and letting the truth reveal itself? Or should she have fought harder to keep her family together? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really like to hear your perspective. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next one.